Hey everyone, today I want to welcome you to the very first episode in a brand new series on how to make a tower defense game in Scratch. So before we start coding, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into what this game is going to look like. So as you can see here, we have this cool looking thumbnail, and if we go ahead and start, we're in this map select, and there are 5 levels going all throughout the map. We start by the Southern Dark Sea and go through the map. So of course, you can't go on these other levels, you can only go on this level. So when you click on it, it gives you a sneak peek of what the map looks like, and then a little story to go with that map. And then if you click to continue, it'll put you into the game. So right off the bat, it says click to start wave. So this is what's going to start the wave of enemies, and then this is how much money you have. These are the towers. This is an upgrade button, but we don't have any towers, so we can't upgrade them. And I made all this art too, so I'm really happy with it. We have perfectly 200 coins, and if we hover over it, it'll give us the description of 200 gold, 1 damage, and fast speed. So let's go ahead and use up all of our money. As you can see, it'll allow us to make it, and where should we put it? I'm going to put it in this little crack here. Then once we place it, it says click tower to see the upgrades, and it uses up all of our money, so we can't buy anything. But if we click on it, as you can see, it kind of selects it, and we can unselect it. But if we click on it, this button becomes big to where we can hover over it, and this will give us the details. So let's go ahead and start the wave. So it says wave incoming here, and it's going to send in some cool sand slimes, and they all have their own health bar, and our tower will automatically target them. Has a cool looking bow, and the tower looks pretty cool. So it'll automatically shoot them, and there's also some cool animations going on. As you can see, when we kill the slime, it gives us the money match. So it says wave complete, and then click this to start the next wave. And because it was down by the Southern Dark Sea, I made it kind of like an ocean theme, and because it's on the beach, the enemies are like these cool slimes. And now we have enough money to upgrade it. So this is the base mechanics. Alrighty, so as you can see, I have a couple of sprites. I have an enemy sprite, I have a tower sprite, arrow, and then the different pieces of the map. So I have the level top, the level path middle, and then the level back. So for the costumes you're going to need to have, I have the enemy's costume. I have just a simple 4-frame jumping animation, a left, a right, and a front sensor. And these are going to be invisible, so you don't really have to make them look good. They just need to be kind of boxes. And the left one's going to be above it, the right one's going to be below it, and the front one's going to be in front of it. To give you a perspective of where the sensors are at, there is the kind of perspective. Then in the towers, I have just arrow tower base right, because it's the bottom of it, and then an arrow tower base left. Next, I have an arrow tower top and an arrow tower top loaded. So this is just the little bow animation. And last but not least, I have arrow tower no, which is just the right costume that's all red when it shows that you can't place it down. The arrow, literally just an arrow. The level top is just the very top layer of the map, and you're going to want to put anything that you want the towers not to be able to be placed on. So for instance, you don't want it to be able to be placed in the water or on a tree, so that's why I put this here, and it's going to be the top layer. Then the path middle is just the path that the enemies will follow along, and then the level back is the very background of it that is behind everything. So those are the costumes that you're going to need. I want to start with the level top, so I'll pull out a when green flag clicked, a show, and then a forever loop here, and a go forward block, and do go forward 6 layers. So this is going to make it go to the top. So there we go, we have our little graphics pop in. For the path middle, I'm just going to pull in the same coding, except take out this forever go to front, and then pull in for the level back the same exact thing, except I want to do a forever loop and then do go to back here. So now as you can see, this whole entire map is properly layered, and it looks really good. Now that we have that, I want to start working on the enemy AI and make them be able to follow this path. So I want to click this show button here and make the costume switch to the right costume, then to do go to 0 0 like that, and do go to front. I want to pull out a when green flag clicked here, a repeat block, and just do a repeat 5 times create clone of myself. Now I want to do a when I start as a clone, and then I want to do a go to block. You can drag it to the very beginning, and then wherever it's at, just pull it in. So now it will always go to that place. Then I want to do a point in direction and make it point in direction like that. -165 because it's pointing that way, and we'll need to do that for the AI to work properly. Then make sure to do set rotation style to left to right, then do a show block here and a go to front. So that's just kind of setting it up. Now let's do a forever loop. I want to go down to the my blocks and just name this AI. Then make an input and name this speed. Now you're going to want to do run screen without refresh. So this is what's going to do all of the movement. So I want to pull in the AI here, and let's just set the speed to 1. Now what I want to do is go into the AI here and do set rotation style to all around. I want to switch costume to left. I'm going to sense to the left of it. And then I want to do an if and pull out a not and do if not touching path middle, which means it's starting to go off of the path. Then we need to turn speed, then do ×2. Make sure that it's turning clockwise, so it's going to turn speed ×2. So right now, because the speed is 1, it's going to turn 2 degrees clockwise. Then I want to switch costume to right and do the same thing except turn speed ×2 counterclockwise. And then I want to duplicate this once more and do switch costume to front and do if touching edge. And you don't have to have the not. Then just delete this clone. And then at the very end, for now, we're just going to do switch costume to sand slime 1 and then a move 10 steps and change this to speed steps. And last but not least, set rotation style to left right, something like that. So what this is doing is it is very quickly switching the costume to the left and saying, am I off of the map? And if I am, then turn. Then switching costume to right and doing if I am off the map, then turn again. Then switching costume to the front and saying, am I on the edge? Then delete myself, and then switching back to whatever costume you want super fast to where we can't even see it. And then also make sure to add a wait 1 second here and a hide block. So let's go ahead and go full screen and see what this is doing. So as you can see, there we go. It's creating the clones and it's automatically following this path. So it's actually just following this path around. So now that we have the slime AI working, let's go ahead and add the tower AI to make it to where you can just place down a tower and it'll try to shoot the enemy. To do this, I want to go into the towers and do a when green flag clicked, a set size to 75% because I made the sprite a little bit too big and I don't want to have to resize it all, and then a show block and a forever loop. I want to just do a switch costume to and do switch costume to arrow tower base right and then do a show block. You actually don't need this show block here, and then a go to mouse pointer. So this is just going to follow your mouse so you can click where you want to place it. A set ghost effect to 50% so it's slightly transparent, and then a go to front layer. So if we go ahead and start this, as you can see here, it kind of looks like we can place this and it looks really cool, but it doesn't really do anything. We can't actually place it down. It just follows your mouse around. So next I want to add to where you can click down. So I want to do an if else here, and I want to do if touching the path mid, which is the actual path, and then a touching level top, and then do an or statement. So it's saying if touching either of those, then we are going to switch to the costume no. So basically that means it'll switch to the red costume whenever we're hovering over something we can't place it on. So as you can see here, we try to place it over anything like that, it'll turn it to a red costume, showing that we won't be able to place it there. Then do an if statement here and do an if mouse down in the else here. So that means we're not touching the top or middle. Then I'm going to wait until block here, duplicate this mouse down, go into operators and pull out a not. So wait until mouse not down, so that means we clicked and then let go. Then it's going to place an archer tower. So we need to make a brand new block and name this place archer underscore tower. Then we want to do run screen without refresh and click OK. So now we want to do wait until mouse not down and do place archer tower. So we need to make our first variable and name this turret clone ID. So this is going to be keeping track of the ID of the turret clone, because we are going to have several different turrets. We're going to have like the text you saw pop up, the bow, the base, all that stuff. And you want to do for the sprite only, very important that you do that. and that is going to be our first variable. So I want to go ahead and set the turret clone ID to arrow tower, then do base. That is going to be this guy right here. Then I want to do a create clone of myself, duplicate this, and do on this bottom one, just rename the last one to arrow tower top. So that is going to be the bow here that's actually shooting. And for now, that is going to be it. So let's start with taking care of the arrow tower base. Now this is going to be the easier one. So we're going to pull out an equal sign here and do if the turret clone ID is equal to copy and paste this. So that's the arrow tower base. Then I want to switch costume to arrow tower base right. Then a show here, a clear graphics effects, a set rotation style to left right, and then a go forward 3 layers. And for now, this is going to be it. So let's go ahead and duplicate this code and copy and paste the arrow tower top there, and just do go forward 5 layers instead. And then we want to do a change Y by 24 in the top, so it goes up a teeny bit. And of course, you may have to adjust these a little bit because this is for my specific turret here. So hopefully now, if we try to place down a tower, as you can see, whoa, it makes 2. Oh, that's because we have it switching to the same costume. So we need to make the arrow tower top switch to the arrow tower top. So now if we try to place it down, as you can see here, we actually have this where it actually places down. So the other problem you may notice is that we can place the towers on top of each other. And so you may just think that we can just do if touching path and then do an or touching the towers sprite, right? But we're in the same sprite. So what you're going to want to do is go into like another sprite, pull out a sensing and the touching, and then do touching towers and just pull that in to the towers. Then you use this block and put it in there. So now, as you can see, if we put that back in the if statement, if we try to place a tower over another tower, it won't actually let us. So that is a cool way you can do that. So before you can make this tower shoot, we need to figure out a way to make this archer point at the front slime or enemy, whatever enemy you may have. So this is a little bit more complicated, so I'll do my best to explain it. We need to have a variable, 2 variables that hold the X position and Y position of the closest enemy. So before we can set the closest enemies X and Y, we need a little algorithm to calculate the front enemy. So let's go ahead and go into the enemy sprite and make a couple of variables. The first variable I want to do is named front enemy, and you are going to want to make that for all sprites. And the second one is going to be called distance enemy. This one is going to be for this sprite only. So you want to make sure that you get the for all sprites and for this sprite's only right. So the distance enemy is for the sprite only, the just front enemy is just global. So now what I need to do is in the very beginning, I want to set the front enemy to 0. Then I want to do a change block and do a for the AI speed, change the distance enemy by speed. So now I want to make a new block and name this closest enemy. This is going to be run screen without refresh, and you can go ahead and click OK. Then I want to do a closest enemy at the end of this enemy AI. So this right here is going to be the block that holds the algorithm for calculating the front enemy. So what you're going to want to do is just do an if statement here. So now we want to pull out a greater than block and an equals block and then an or block. So we're going to put the greater than on the left and the equals on the right. Now we want to do distance enemy is greater than front enemy, and then distance enemy is equal to front enemy, and put that in this if statement. Then I want to do a set and do the set front enemy to distance enemy. Then we need to make the 2 variables that I was talking about earlier for the closest enemy X and closest enemies Y. So let's go ahead and make 2 more variables and name these closest enemy and then underscore do X, and this is going to be for all sprites. Copy and paste that into the next one and do closest enemy Y, also for all sprites. So now I want to do a set closest enemy X to and a set closest enemy Y and just put X position and Y position. So closest enemy X is X position and the other one is Y position. So basically from what all that's doing, if we hide all the variables except for closest enemy X and closest enemy Y, if we go ahead and start this, as you can see, it's going to calculate the very front enemy and set the X and Y position to that. That way we can use an algorithm to point towards those coordinates. Alrighty, so now that we have those two variables that are very important, I want to go ahead and also, I forgot to do something. Make sure you do go to 0, 0 for all of the paths here. The level top, the level mid, and the level path. That way everything resets, but we can now make it to where the top of the tower will point at the front enemy. So I want to do a forever loop here, and then I want to make a new block and name this point. Now I want to do run screen without refresh. So this is a teeny bit confusing. This is probably the hardest part. So if we put the point in the forever loop and then move the point over here, it has quite a bit of math in it. So I want to do an if-else statement here and just do if the closest enemy X is greater than the X position, which means that it's to the right of it, then I want to do a point in direction block here. I want to pull out a minus block and do closest enemy Y and then a Y position. So closest enemy Y minus Y position, duplicate that and do closest enemy X minus X position. Then I want to do a divided by block and put the closest enemy Y on the left side and the X on the right side. So it looks something like this. Then I want to go down into the abs of blocks and pull this out and change this input to, and change it to this one, the atan. So I'll go ahead and do the atan of all the stuff we just did. And then last but not least, pull out a minus block and do 90 for this and just put that on the right side. So that is quite a bit of math there, so make sure you copy that exactly because otherwise this is not going to work. So you want to duplicate this, and the only thing you want to change on the right side is just do negative 90 right here. That is the block. It's a little bit confusing, so if we start this now, the tower should point at the front enemy. It's not working here because we set the rotation style to left right, so make sure for the arrow tower top to set it to all around. So now if we start, as you can see, look at that, the bow is actually pointing towards this enemy, which is the front enemy. So that right there is the way to make it point towards the front enemy. So always be pointing towards that enemy, which is really good. Okay, so to finish this episode off, I want to make the arrows shoot at the enemies. So let's go ahead and do that. I want to make a block and just name this arrow tower shoot and then do animation, and make sure this is not run screen without refresh, and this is just going to be a little animation. So I want to do switch costume to arrow tower top loaded, repeat 4 times, move -1 steps. So this is just making it go back a little bit for like an animation, then move forward 4 steps, and then switch costume to the arrow tower top, just a normal one. So now we just need to pull this one in. So arrow tower shoot animation right there, and then I want to do a wait 0.01 seconds, and I want to do a new block and name the shoot arrow. This is what's going to be actually cloning the arrow, and this you do want to do run screen without refresh. So now I want to do shoot arrow underneath that. So this one, all we want to do is make 2 new variables and name these bullet spawn X for all sprites, copy and paste that, and do bullet spawn Y. So this is just going to be telling the bullet where to spawn. That's pretty simple, thankfully. So I want to pull out a set bullet spawn X and a set bullet X Y. Now I want to set the bullet X to X position and bullet Y to Y position. And last but not least, just do a create clone of the arrow sprite over here. And now the very last thing is to make it not shoot as often. So just do a wait pick random 1.4 seconds to 1.8 seconds. So this is just going to make it timed a little bit so it doesn't just machine gun fire it. So if we go ahead and start this, as you can see, this little thing will do, this guy will make an animation and point at the latest target. If you've done everything correctly, it should look something like this, to where the bow will point at it, the front enemy, and it will do a little animation. So really quickly, to end off this episode, I want to make the arrow actually shoot towards the enemy. Go into the arrow sprite and do a when green flag clicked and a hide block, then do a when I start as a clone. So this is going to be when it starts. I want to do a go to block and just do go to bullet spawn X and bullet spawn Y. Then we want to make 2 new variables, just name this X and do for the sprite only, click OK, and then do Y for the sprite only. So this is just going to make it to where multiple towers can shoot at the same time and not have it glitch out and only make one of the towers shoot. So set the X to 0 and the Y to 0 and just do X position and Y position here. So that's what it should look like. Then switch costume to arrow, set rotation style to all around, a wait 0.01 seconds just to give it a little bit time to load, then a go to X and Y, not the bullet spawn X and bullet spawn Y, but the actual X and Y. Then a show block here, a go to front, and then make a brand new block and just name this point. And now this is, and then do run screen without refresh, and then just do point here. So this is going to be the exact same thing as we used in the tower. So go into the towers here and pull in this define point here into the arrows, and just pull this coding into the new point we have, and probably edit this because I want this to have a capital. So now basically this is just going to point in the right direction. Last but not least, I will do a forever loop here, a move 10 steps and just change this to 15, a point here so it's constantly pointing, that way it can't miss the enemy, and then just pull out an if statement and do if touching enemy. Duplicate that and do edge and just click or. So if touching enemies or edge, then wait 0.05 seconds and delete this clone. So this is just the pointing and everything. So hopefully if we hide all of these variables and we start this game, we put down a tower, as you can see, boom, it's not exactly working right. Okay, so what I figured out here is right here, I set the X variable to X position and also the X, so just change this one to Y if you did that. Make sure that is Y for Y position. So now if we place down this tower, as you can see, look at that. It actually shoots, it aims at the front slime and it shoots at it. And if we place down multiple towers, as you can see, they all shoot and there's no problems. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first episode on how to make a tower defense game. And if you did enjoy it, then make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me. But anyways, this has been Owen, and I am out.